Well, it's been a while, friends. Welcome back to Going to Ground. I've gone to ground, haven't I, over the last 3 weeks? Regular groundlings must have been wondering where I've been. And sorry to have such a protracted break mid-season, but it's been a month, as perhaps for some of you, of not only of lots of activity, which is not unusual, but of remembrance and thanksgiving for those gone before us. I last posted just ahead of All Saints Tide, Halloween, and I love the last month of the church's year because, of course, our annual round begins on Advent Sunday, a month ahead. And so November is a kind of a looking back month, a taking stock month, and a time of gratitude and grief, really, of waiting with and drawing close to those who we love but see no longer. Perhaps too those we struggled to love but we see no longer. And I'm up here on a Friday morning by the Avebury Barrows, just off the Ridgeway in Wiltshire. You can see them under those familiar bristling stands of beech trees, looking beautifully rusty in the autumn. It was a misty start here, but it's cleared now. It's about 8:45 in the morning, and it feels a fitting place to be at the conclusion of this season of remembrance. I've just played a concert in Salisbury last night, and thank you to those of you who came along. There were quite a few of you turned up. We had a full house, 130 people. It was in the medieval hall in Salisbury, which is as old as the cathedral, 800 years. Extraordinary place, which is used for occasional events, and has been, over the years, by John and Jane, the owners of the hall, been converted back to something like its original space, with a broad banqueting hall. There's a chimney in a roof hole, a hole in the roof, as it would have been years ago, centuries ago, with a fireplace, unlit last night, but in the centre. And you can just imagine the dean whose home it was, and the great and the good, and hopefully some of the less great and less good of Salisbury gathering there. So all sorts of memories imprinted in that hall, and it was joyous, actually. Thank you for those of you who came along, as I say, and were so supportive. We were David, my musical friend, and me were playing songs from Evensongs, reading from English Grounds, and some poems that were written right here in this spot, particularly the poem about the encounter with deer called Matins, which I can't remember if I read on Going to Ground, but it's posted on my Instagram. Anyway, at that concert, among other encounters, I met a couple who I hadn't seen since 1981 or thereabouts, when we left Luton. Friends of friends who were groovy young people, Jed and Pam, in the 70s, where my dad was vicar in Luton and part of the congregation there. And they came along to the concert, and they hadn't seen me since I was, I don't know, 12 or 13. And it was quite lovely at a time when I've been looking back a great deal, to encounter them and reminisce about things that very few others would have known. And I so rarely meet people who knew my dad particularly, because he died quite a long time ago. And there was a lovely gift of a photograph of Mum and Dad from a wedding in 1977. Dad the same age as me, 55, 56, he must have been, and in his dog collar, Mum looking beautiful. Personal reminiscence, of course, and you'll have your own equivalents of those, but it moved me deeply and felt a fitting time to receive that reminder. It was almost like a reminder from the past of who one is, where one's come from. These are not, everybody has these. You've got your own versions, and mine are no more singular or special than anybody else's, but I'm just sharing them because it was I go back to these times, as I'm sure you do, to get some heading for the future. I look to the past not to dwell there. We can't live in the past. Nostalgia doesn't satisfy ultimately, but we go back to go forward. We go back in order to find signposts ahead. And so I give thanks for that this morning. In a place between two barrows, one behind me, one here, where our restful ancestors are present, and so I'll be a bit more visible, hopefully, over the next few weeks, and whatever is for you this day, may God bless you as you go to ground.